going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of the week once more. It is time to get our tips in, but before we get ahead of ourselves and lock in our tips for round 10, we need to take time to reflect on round 9. And my tipping round for round 9 was really mediocre. 5 out of 9, well below standard for myself this season, and no fault of my own. In my previous tipping video, there were a couple of decisions I made that I said I would come back and maybe reflect upon prior to those games happening. I didn't do so, and it bit me in the ass in a very big way. Kicking it off with Thursday night at Optus Stadium with Fremantle taking on Collingwood. I backed Fremantle by 15 points. It was Collingwood the way of 14 points, and it was a very big win for them in many ways. Nick Dacos injured, playing out of position, heavily tagged. No Pendlebury, no DeGoey, no Myercheck, no Braden Maynard. Still side bottom subbed out of the game with only 7 disposals and not injured, just subbed out of the game for fresh legs. And they still managed to pick up a win on the road after a 5-day break. Absolutely huge. When I say I feel Collingwood at this point in time are the informed team of the competition, I don't say that lightly. Fremantle letting their supporters down yet again and letting those down that backed them yet again, because that roller coaster, that up and down, that inconsistency still following them incredibly closely. Friday night, we backed Carlton to defeat St Kilda, all but a certainty. I felt the fact that it was played at the MCG. Carlton with a chip on their shoulder after the loss to Adelaide the week prior. Got it done quite comfortably in the end. We backed Hawthorn against Melbourne. Ended up being the biggest winning margin of the round. If you haven't seen my round recap video, go and check it out. But this past round was the closest round by margin differentiation in AFL history. 10.33 points was the average winning margin. It was insane. We backed Sydney to defeat Essendon, and they fell by 8 points in a game that could have seen them maybe roll up and do something a little bit different had they been accurate in front of goal in the final half, if an umpiring decision may have not gone the way of Essendon like it shouldn't have, but beggars can't be choosers. Essendon managing to hold on to a lead and getting it done in a close contest. We backed the Bulldogs over the Gold Coast getting it done. I did say that I felt TIO Stadium was going to be more acclimatizing for the Gold Coast with weather conditions and the heat, and they won by 10 points against a very valiant Bulldogs team, and they get to play at TIO again this weekend, so I think I know where my tip is going to land when the time comes. Port Adelaide and Adelaide, the showdown, incredibly close, less than a goal in it. Adelaide coming through with a win for us. My boys clinching their 3rd win of the season against West Coast in a 2-point win that saw Tom Brown lay the tackle of his fucking life to save the game, and I'm very happy Richmond won because we did tip Richmond as our gauntlet selection this week, as our certainty. So I'm glad we took that off the table. Geelong, we backed them against GWS, and GWS decided to throw the past month of football that they've played out the window and come and actually play a decent brand of football on the back of Jesse Hogan kicking 7. And the final game of the round, either way you tipped it, you'll get a tick because we got our first draw for 2025. 5 out of 9, as I said, well below average, but it's good to see some people in my tipping competition were well above the average this week, with 2 people tipping a near perfect round with 8 out of 9. So congratulations must go to Nado, Nathan, and Dan Cash, Daniel P, 2 coaches or players that have been around for quite a while with my tipping competitions and the footy content that I've made, and I'm glad you guys have decided to stick with me and transition to this platform. Congratulations to the both of you for holding down the competition as leaders for round 9, and we have had a shake-up at the top of the ladder overall. We have seen, for the first time this season, Jazz Sky 13 drop to 3rd place. Skyvo has moved to outright first on 61 tips total. Dan Cash, Jazz Sky, Macca0303, Sean AE, and Gramercy Riff 78 all on 60 points, 1 tip behind. The top 10 is rounded out by Nado, Matthias, Beanos, and Charles Lowe. Congratulations to my top 10. Congratulations to Skyvo for taking over the overall lead. As for myself, I've dropped down to 29 out of 48. If we have a look at my overall tips here, I'm on 51. I am 10 tips behind the lead. I don't even think there is a way for me to get into the top 10 at this point in time. I've just got to hope I can maybe break into the top 20. That brings us to round 10, which is the unofficial Sir Douglas Nicholls round, you know, ahead of the Indigenous round in round 11, I believe, when we have the Dreamtime game and everything else in the mix. Some teams will be represented by their Indigenous jerseys this round. Some teams opting to go by their Indigenous names in this round as well. It is all kicking off at TIO Stadium Thursday night, Gold Coast taking on Hawthorn. I feel you've got to go with the edge for Gold Coast here. They just beat the Western Bulldogs in TIO Stadium. They know how to play the ground. They've gotten used to the weather. I really feel Gold Coast in a very tight contest is going to get the win here. Yes, I know I've got to pick a team first, dickhead. I was trying to do my margin. We are going with Gold Coast, and we're going to go Gold Coast by... Let's go Gold Coast by 16 points. I've heard some murmurs around that there are going to be players this weekend that are going to be missing or managed from certain teams given the short turnaround in breaks and the travel times. Andrew Brayshaw is one floated for Fremantle. For Hawthorn, I've heard rumours that players like Lloyd Meek might not be making the run over there, and those are going to be like... Lloyd Meek out of Hawthorn is a big omission considering how well he has been playing this year. So definitely keep your eyes on team lists when they are dropped. The Thursday night game will be dropped later on tonight, and then obviously the games for Friday and Saturday will be dropped Thursday night, and then I believe it is Friday night that we will get the Sunday teams. But I'm going Gold Coast to kick off the round. Friday night, SCG Sydney hosting Carlton. It is very hard to see where this game is going to land because Sydney back at home after losing a tight contest to Essendon at the MCG. You would think, sorry, was it Marvel? Did they play at Marvel? Did they play at the MCG? Wherever they played it, it was a very close contest. And Sydney back at home, more often than not, you would back them in. But Carlton getting a win, even though it was against St Kilda, Carlton getting a little bit of momentum going behind their game could really propel them moving forward. And I can see if any team can go to SCG to knock them off, Carlton are definitely within the realm to do so. They've both been playing very average brands of football up until this point in time, so it's a real coin flip. At this point in time, I'm going to go with an upset. I'm going to go Carlton to knock off Sydney at the SCG. Tentative to team release, and I'm going to make sure this week if team release goes the way of Sydney, I'm changing my tip, but I'm going to go with Carlton to kick things off. Saturday afternoon, MCG, Collingwood hosting Kawana, which is Adelaide. I just feel Collingwood doing what they did against Fremantle in Fremantle. They've got the momentum behind them. Their systems are just so good. They're going to have Pendlebury back in, DeGoey back in, Myercheck back in, Braden Maynard back in. They are going to get a very nice win at home over Adelaide. Later on that afternoon, we go down to Adelaide Oval with Yatapulti, Port Adelaide, taking on Geelong. I am going to go Geelong here. I think seeing what Adelaide did to Port Adelaide exposed Port Adelaide a bit around the ground. Geelong are going to be licking their wounds quite severely with a close loss to GWS at home, and they're going to want to bounce back. And if they're, again, similar to Carlton, if there's any team at this point in time that can hit the road and beat Port Adelaide on their home deck, I can see Geelong doing it, and I'm happy to back them in. Saturday afternoon, we go over to NG Stadium where GWS are hosting Walyalup, which is Fremantle. If I mispronounce these words, I apologise. I think the possibility of Andrew Brayshaw not playing is going to be too insurmountable for Fremantle. He has been their best player by far this year. Potentially no Sean Darcy, depending on how bad that injury is. I haven't checked out injury lists yet. GWS winning a close contest at GMHBA Stadium would have to start building some belief with that team, right? So going back on their home deck, I'm backing them in to pick up a win and go back to back. Saturday night at Marvel, we have the Bulldogs hosting Essendon. I think the Bulldogs win this one quite convincingly. We saw them defeat Port Adelaide only 2 weeks ago by 90 points. They fell short to Gold Coast this past weekend by 10 points, but still managed to put 90 on the board themselves. This is a very serious team that are doing some very serious things. They had Adam Treloar, I believe, sit out of this game, so he'll come back in this week. Adds a little bit of something into that midfield. They'll get it done by at least 5 goals, I'm going to say. Sunday kicks off at the MCG with Richmond taking on North Melbourne. I would love to be at this game, and two teams on different sides of the spectrum. We've got Richmond, who held off a fast-finishing West Coast outfit and were a little bit inaccurate in the second half themselves, clinching that 2-point win. And then you've got North Melbourne, who were 17th on the ladder, but they drew with the reigning premiers and played very, very impressive football. Although this is another bottom barrel game, I'm hoping it's just as good as what Richmond and West Coast was. And some people might laugh at that, but sometimes when two teams have nothing to lose and they put everything out on the line, it makes for a good game of football. And Richmond and West Coast put on, in my eyes, although some areas were scrappy, it was a great contest. 15 lead changes that everybody knuckled in. It was great to see. I'm expecting the same for this game. North Melbourne go in as favourite. I'm hoping Richmond can pick up the win here. I'm going to go on a bit of an outward slant. Most will probably go North. I'm hoping if I go Richmond and they do win, I kind of get that edge on other people that didn't want to back my boys in. But I just feel there's a belief around Richmond now. We've got some players coming back from injury, which is going to be huge. My Kelty Lafau comes back into the VFL this week. Dion Prestia might be only 1 or 2 weeks away, which is going to bolster our midfield. The upsetting news is I was hoping Josh Smiley would debut next week in the Dreamtime game, but he has re-aggravated a hamstring injury, so he might be out for a few weeks. It could be up to a month until we see him yet again. But Richmond, for me, fingers crossed, even though I know Tristan Cherry is going to chomp us up. Noah Bolter's last game before missing the following week because of the night curfew as well, so I'm going to back in Noah Bolter to keep Nick Larkey to no more than 2 goals, and that is going to go a long way to helping Richmond win this game. Up at the Gabba, Richmond hosting Nam, which is Melbourne, and I think Brisbane managed to get this game locked up nice and tight. I think they are going to rue their kind of, not just inaccuracy, but I think their lack of willingness to win. I really feel in the second half against North Melbourne, they looked very blasé. They really looked like they took their foot off the pedal. It looked like they were taking the piss a little bit. They're going to want to reset. They're going to want to re-establish themselves as the dominant team in this competition. They're going to do so quite convincingly against Melbourne on the road. And the round rounds out at Optus Stadium with, oh fuck, here we go, Waltage Marawa, which is West Coast taking on Euroke. I hope I fucking said that right. Again, if I didn't, I apologise. But it's West Coast taking on St Kilda at Optus Stadium. I really do feel this is a very winnable game for West Coast. Just the pressure they implied onto Richmond, their willingness to run and carry. I'm going to do something so out of left field right now. I honestly do feel West Coast are going to get the win here. They get Jeremy McGovern back in, and I truly feel if West Coast had Jeremy McGovern against Richmond, they would have won. He was a big out for them. I don't know which way this is going to go. I am going to do something so unbelievable. I'm actually going to tip West Coast to win. I'm going to tip West Coast to win. That might be a big call. I'm going to lock them in. I'm going to lock them in before I regret the fact that I've locked them in. Here we go. My tips for the week: Gold Coast, Carlton, Collingwood, Geelong, GWS, the Bulldogs, Richmond, Brisbane, and West Coast. Do I go West Coast? Do we go St Kilda? You know what? I'm going to just play it a little bit safe here. I'm going to go St Kilda, but depending on team lists being announced, I will probably change to West Coast. I've just got a gut feeling deep in my loins. That would mean if I do swap to West Coast, it would be the perfect opportunity to whack the gauntlet on them right now. We need to work out, though, who we're going to put the gauntlet on this week and who we are going to officially eliminate from the pool. I think this is the week we take Collingwood out of commission, because I feel Collingwood is as sure a thing as anything, and I'm going to back them in. So let's go Collingwood as our tip this week. I hope I didn't just put the kiss of death on them. But that is it for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. I do hope you guys enjoy the content I put out here. If you do continue to hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button to get on board the community we're slowly building here. And if you have any suggestions for content you would like to see on this channel moving forward, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.